Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Village of Campton Hills. It's May 20th, 2025, and it's, 7:05? Our clocks are off, so 7:05 right now. Roll call, please.
Trustee Benetti?
Here.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson? Here. Trustee Millette?
Present.
Trustee Muir?
Here.
Trustee Hapsensberger? Here. President Wodnicki?
Present. Please rise for the pledge. And Nick, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start out with public comments, and Clerk Tracy.
Mike Terrell?
I think we're going to hold them later.
You might want to save that now.
Okay. Yeah. If there's any comments about what is going to be presented tonight about the development south of 38, we're holding that down a little bit further down in the agenda. We'll have some presentations by Dave Petzelt and Drew and Dr. Zander and who else is here? And then if you wish to comment after that, we'll accept comments after that as well. So whenever you're ready, Mike.
Good evening.
Thank you.
That's a little loud. Since the inception of the village, there's been an ongoing commitment for no taxes. I'm speaking tonight on ordinances 2517 through 20. Recently, District 303 had a big property tax. Campton Township rightfully came up with a open space tax for $17 million. Kane County Forest Preserve added a tax. Again, since the inception of the village, there's been a commitment of no taxes. Many at this table have run on that commitment as well. At a recent board meeting, a rationale was given on why these were needed, and East Dundee was named as a model that we may wish to emulate. Please read through the profile that I've given you here, and I'll try and summarize it. I won't go through every detail. It's there for you to digest. East Dundee is a community of just over 3 square miles. Campton Hills is 17 square miles. They're a population of 3,200, give or take. We're 11,000. As you go through, you'll look at some of the financials. Third or fourth page, you'll see an actual tax bill. Identity has been removed from East Dundee. And you'll see that East Dundee, the village, has the 3rd largest taxing percentage in the village of East Dundee. As you move on from there, you'll see that East Dundee has taxes which are a municipal gas tax. They have a property tax. They had to do that via referendum to make themselves a home rule community. They have an amusement tax. They have an income tax. They have a parking tax, permits and license. They have, as I mentioned earlier, property tax, sales tax, users fees, utility taxes. Now you move on to the next page and you will see a 2021 budget overview. And as you move further in, you'll see a 2025 budget overview. In just 4 short years, a community arguably 1/4 our size has had in 2021 a net expenses of $12 million. 4 years later, their expenses were $24 million. Continue on through, and you'll see a variety of news articles that have come out on East Dundee, including a not long ago request to raise property taxes by 13%. I think when you look at those profiles on the budget overviews, you'll notice that in 2021, I'll give you 2025, that's even better. In 2025, they had revenues of just over 20.4 million. Compare that to Campton Hills. They had expenses of $24.4 million. Their expenses outdrive their revenues, regardless of how many taxes, fees, property taxes, gas tax, amusement taxes, they're all there delineated for you. Regardless, they still can't get caught up. I challenge this board to take a fiscally conservative approach. Before instituting any taxes and/or fees, look at your expenses. Look hard at your expenses. 2 years ago, just prior to the board changeover, we had
Mike?
been in.
Mike, your 3 minutes is, it was up already, but.
Okay,
just kinda
I'll finish
finish up.
very quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had contacted a company called Asvar. That information was passed along. Asvar is a company that goes out and works with municipalities and identifies lost revenues where they're being channeled somewhere else. It costs municipality absolutely nothing. If they find something, you get a big percentage. If they find nothing, it costs. Before adding taxes, new taxes for the first time, I suggest we might look. I would wrap up very, very quickly. FOIAs. I happen to notice when we go through your warrants, FOIAs have huge expenses. Warrant 2524 is an example, $1,830. I think the clerk is supposed to do the FOIAs as the authorized sworn deputy for FOIAs, not the attorney. $2,500, $1,800, month after month after month is going for attorney's fees. I think the clerk should look at those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Williams?
Good evening, Board. I just want to talk a little bit about the taxes. I brought my notes for when I was on the board, if this came up. So the Village of Campton Hills was established in 2007, and it saved the citizens a ton of cash compared to surrounding towns. Let's look at comparisons. St. Charles, Elburn, Geneva, that's my three comparisons. That's where I go out to eat mostly. And the multipliers for tax rates are crazily different. St. Charles, it's a 2.86624 property tax. That's what they charge for property taxes on an assessed value. 2.92 in Elburn, 2.53, and we're 2.20. Okay, so if you take a $600,000 assessed value, which is not hard to get to in Campton Hills, your taxes would be $17,194. In Elburn, they'd be $17,446. In Geneva, they'd be $15,000. In Campton, they're $13,000. You take that over 10 years, now we're talking money. St. Charles would be $3,900 more. Wait, 1 year comparison is $3,900 for St. Charles. Elburn's $4,000. Geneva's $1,900 difference. We're getting a swinging deal. 10-year comparisons would be $39,000 at St. Charles all the way to $19,000 for Geneva. We're getting a deal. We got all the village stuff. We got the cops. We got it all. We're getting a deal compared to other villages. So if we're going to sit around and complain and say, oh, I don't want to pay taxes, I mean, trust me, I'm a no-tax guy. But these taxes we're talking about are not that much. The telecommunications tax is just a replacement for the taxes we lost for cable. We're not even really gaining anything out of it. Everybody shares, not the telecommunications tax, I'm sorry, the
Comcast.
amusement, or not the amusement, the one for streaming. Streaming, it would really just be a replacement. A lot of people are sharing streaming. I don't know what number it's going to end up being, so it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of a no-brainer. It just replaces what we have already. The eating out tax, I don't think it's a big deal. I eat out I went to St. Charles like a week ago, 3%. Geneva's 1%. Elburn, these are the towns I eat at, including this town. Don't tell me that no one's going to eat here because we raised it 1%. That's ridiculous. Half the places we have here pay taxes in those towns. They can just do it. I owned a company. I paid to 100 separate jurisdictions. It's not that big of a deal. Everybody goes, oh, it's a burden. Well, then get out of business if it's a burden. I mean, paying taxes is part of being in business. I don't understand the problem. Telecommunication taxes, that's really the number. Now, if it truly, I talked to trustee Burson on this, and, you know, what percentage, what amount of your bill would be taxed at 6%? You're allowed to go to a full 6%. Every town around here does it. Everyone does it. We're the only one not doing it. What are we, stupid? I mean, come on. They're paying for everything, and we're not doing this. I don't understand it. And I am not a big tax guy, but if you took my tax bill for my phone and you did it by the 6%, it's like $19 a month or $1,800 a year, which still saves me a ton of money compared to my property taxes. So my point would be this. I think, you know, it's funny in this town. I find it hilarious. The majority of our citizens pass to open space. How are they going to get there? We going to drive? You going to walk? If the roads get so bad, we going to walk to open space? Most of the time, I drive to open space to walk with my wife. I don't want to walk to open space to walk with my wife, or I'll have to drive at open space. So I'll have to make driving, you know, I don't understand it. People, in my neighborhood, I got a brand new road on my street. My neighbor walked up to me the other day, I'm not kidding, I'm out in my backyard, and he walks up to me and he goes, Tom, I was gonna move, our road sucked. He goes, I'm staying now. I got a brand new road. See, it's a positive. My whole street is so positive, and I'm a guy that got my road passed already, so let me pay for it. Let me pay for it. You're gonna let me get away with not paying for it? It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, I'd pass it. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think anybody's gonna be upset about it. I know this thing was founded on no taxes, but that was a pipe dream. And Illinois has only made it harder for little villages to survive because they're stealing the money from us. So if you guys don't do it, I think you're making a big mistake, because I think you could be a great town with it. Something else.
All right, thank you, Tom.
No others.
All right, moving on. Staff reports. We have the police report.
Thank you. I'll make this quick since there's a lot tonight. So, April monthly report, calls for service 311, 12 accidents, 56 citations, 8 arrests. Current call volume's up 40% from last year. Department hiring, we had 1 new part-time officer who started recently, 12 years experience. He works full-time at another agency. We also have a second part-timer that is just finishing the hiring process, including the background. Hopefully they'll be starting soon. And then the first lateral officer has completed everything. He starts actually tomorrow. He comes to us with 15 years experience, so he'll be an asset for us and help us out here. Recently, still been working on the low-speed electric scooter concerns that's going on. I spoke with a couple members of Fox Mill HOA this past week, so we're trying to come up with a compromise. The compromise is many people move to Campton Hills for the freedoms and that. This is not intended to go get the children that are out enjoying their subdivisions, but it is a problem that has to be addressed, so we have to find that sort of even ground to be able to deal with it, because we do have some issues, and we'll come up with a solution. Right now, looking at Huntley's, who's pretty good in their ordinance, so hopefully over the next couple weeks, we'll come up with something to address it fairly for everyone, and that's it.
All right, any questions or comments for Chief Levand? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a
Sure,
question
go
on the
ahead,
electric
Frank.
scooters? I see a lot of them like on the roads and stuff. Is there anything that would prohibit that? Because those things move pretty fast.
Yeah, so state of Illinois, and this is where we're trying to do this carefully. January, state of Illinois enacted a law that says any motorized scooter that has 2 or 3 wheels, handlebars, you know, can travel. You can actually look on this in many levels where you actually have to have a driver's license for many of these. So those are the concerning ones. We see them come through here. They go through at 30 miles an hour. They don't stop at stop signs. Those are the ones we want to address. No, they cannot be driving them down the roadways. Subdivisions, slightly different. Again, we want to have some leniency on this. Be fair. It's a big balancing act right now, but that is the ones that we're trying to target and deal with, because it has become a big problem. But we don't want to, again, the kids that are out enjoying the day, and they're on their little slow speed ones, even though we do get complaints for those. So it's just a balancing act right now, but those are the ones that we are trying to target, and no, they cannot be driving down the roadways.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I'll make this quick also. In regards to the electric scooters, I was brainstorming with another trustee, and we were kind of think, what if there was a free registration program and, once a month, the police department did like a 1-hour education, safety, rules of the road, just some level of education. Because I wouldn't doubt that most parents get these electric vehicles and treat it the same way as a bicycle. Go hit the streets, pretty much unaware of the dangers outside of maybe wear a helmet. And I'm sure that half of these kids, if they heard it at a safety program, it could be very impactful. I don't think they would have much more than an hour's worth of attention span, some of these kids, if we kept it brief, but at least I wanted to throw that out there for you to consider when you're putting your proposal together for how we're going to deal with this.
All right, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Chief Levand. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Anything to be removed? I just want to say I'm going to remove 5E from the consent agenda. Anything else to be removed? Janet?
5C and 5F.
5C and 5F. Any others? Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5E, 5F, 5E, 5F, and C, and 5C.
So moved.
Moved by Frank. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Therese. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Hapsenberger? Aye. Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Let's see. I have no comments about 5E, but we'll go to 5C. Who removed 5C?
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Only because there's a bill for replacement of a stop sign. And the stop sign is being replaced because it was run over at an intersection where this happens not infrequently. And we've had conversations before about traffic on McDonald Road between more or less Dittman and 47. This happened to be at McDonald and Kendall. The intersection itself is implicitly warranted. The angle of Kendall and McDonald is such that the warrant is implicit, and we can get a stop sign on McDonald. I suggested before, I think we should have one. When people are trying to turn right onto Kendall as they come going west on McDonald, for whatever reason, even people who live around here don't seem to see it, and they end up driving into the ditch. And that's why we're spending a couple $100 on a stop sign, which isn't the end of the world. But, even though I don't think, I don't know how serious any of these accidents are, but no accident's a good accident. And I think along with the traffic calming situation that we're trying to deal with on McDonald, I think it would help. And we don't have to fight for it. The warrant's there. Yes, please.
Okay, could I have a second on that?
Second?
Second by Nick. Okay, any other comments?
I'll work with HR Green to check the warrants out and report back next meeting.
Okay. Roll call?
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hapsenberger?
Aye. Okay, and we'll move on to 5F. Janet, you pulled that.
I actually would like to move to table this appointment.
You table? Do I have a second to table?
Second.
second by Frank. Any discussion, comments? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Nay.
Trustee Muir?
Nay.
Trustee Hassenberger?
Nay.
President Wonicky?
What's the tally?
3-3.
3-3? Yes. To table, I'm sorry, no, I will vote no on that one. Okay.
We have to ask for a motion to approve it. You have to ask for a motion to approve the appointment and second.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve the appointment, and I'll need a second for that. Moved by Treese, okay. Roll call,
And we need a second.
I'll second.
okay. Who was that, Kim? Okay, and roll call. Discussion, go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
I kind of don't even know what to say about this appointment on multiple levels, but I think the most important issue is that there is already an issue that really should be on this agenda today regarding how appointments to these various committees are made. And to be making appointments to committees now, prior to discussing the issue that is absolutely required to be on the next agenda, seems inappropriate to me. The entire manner of how we do these appointments may change, and so I don't think we should be appointing people to any committee right now. Setting that aside, this particular appointment is problematic. As a trustee, Mr. McKelvey engaged in various actions that seemed personally motivated, and he appeared to use the levers of village power and his power as a trustee to engage in these personal attacks. And these attacks happened to be leveled at me multiple times, 3 times in a row, 3 times in 3 months. I can take it, that's really not the question. The question is whether or not we want to have someone on the Planning and Zoning Commission who would make decisions that should be made in the best interest of the village based on what seemed to be very personal animus at the time. And so I don't think that this is an appropriate appointment in any circumstance.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, my
Frank?
personal comment, I don't have anything against anybody personally, but I would question how it's chosen and how many other candidates were considered, how many other applications we had, and potentially, and again, I'll say this out of ignorance, I guess, shouldn't that be shared with the trustees to kind of see who all the candidates were, to give us an opportunity to provide some feedback? So I guess I'm just questioning the process of how it works, because if there were other applicants and there were other people that could bring things to the table that may be a little different than what we've had in the past, wouldn't that be a good thing? I mean, I think the last couple of elections, the residents have said, hey, we want to see some new blood. So why wouldn't we use that same mentality in considering appointees for the committees? And like I said, I have nothing against anybody personally, but I think if there were more applicants, there should have been some consideration. That's my only comment.
Okay. Just so I can respond to that, applicants come in sporadically, and we do put information in community counts when there are openings on certain committees. I go through all the applicants. There's usually, if there's an opening on a committee, there's usually not more than 2 or 3 applicants. I go through them very carefully, and if they've mentioned other residents that they know in the community, and they use them as references. I do talk to them. And the committee choices are my choice, and that's why then I bring it here and want to get, the trustees' thoughts and feedback, and that's how it goes. So how about a roll call?
Trustee Hassenberger?
A.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Nay.
Trustee Boatner?
Nay.
Trustee Burson?
Nay.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
President Wodnicki?
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to, let's see. We're going to move 7D under the consent agenda, development south of Route 38. And we have several people who are going to speak about the development proposed south of 38. And we will start out with Dave Patzelt from Shodine Corporation. And we've got a bubble map on both sides, and I guess one up in the front there.
Good evening. My name is David Patzelt.
Mike?
Ooh, yeah.
Good evening. For the record, David Patzelt, P-A-T-Z-E-L-T, from the Shodine Group, 77 North First Street, Geneva, Illinois, 60134. Thanks for having me here this evening, here to present to you a concept land use plan in bubble format to talk about the various uses on the proposed land, and then hopes to have some general feedback and good discussion with you about that proposed plan, and then in the end, hope to hear from you whether there is a interest or a desire for annexation of this subject property to the Village of Campton Hills. So the property that we're here to discuss with you this evening is the colored portion of the property that is outlined on top of an aerial photograph. The property consists of approximately 962 acres. It lies generally south of Route 38. So Route 38 is east-west across the top, is generally north of Kesslinger Road. Kesslinger Road is here across the bottom in an east-west direction. On the far left side, the property is bounded by Hardley Road on the west, and then on the east, Brundage Road on the east. The property is perhaps known to many in the past. It had development names such as Settlements of LaFox, Grand Prairie, and more recently it was proposed to be redeveloped by Pulte Homes. The property is bisected in a north-south direction by LaFox Road. LaFox Road, we know, is going to be connected with Bunker Road. Bunker Road is shown generally curved here with the aerial photograph behind it. We refer to that as the Bunker Road extension. The property is also bisected in an east-west direction by the Metro UP Railway. Generally in the center portion of the property is the LaFox train station. The LaFox train station is a relatively new train station. It was identified in the Kane County Comprehensive Plan as a priority place, and thus the land around that train station being a significant transportation node for the Chicago metropolitan area. It was also, the land was also identified as a priority place back in the approximately 1996. Over the past 25 to 30 years, we have watched this property being proposed in a variety of different developments, different shapes, and also different quantities of land that were associated with it. The Shodine organization began in 1994, broke ground on, you can just barely see a portion of the property down here south of Kesslinger Road, which was known as the Mill Creek development, Mill Creek, and the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District were created to develop that property south of Kesslinger Road. Since that time and watching this property, we had not contracted on the property at all to be a developer of the property, but seeing that the Pulte organization was not successful in presenting and preparing a proposed development plan, knowing that at some point in time, the property was going to be developed, we did enter into negotiations with the property owner, and we have the property under contract. We have not purchased the property yet. We are only going to purchase it and close on it if we know that we have a development plan that is amenable to the developer as well as the adjoining neighbors and the municipality that the development may be located within. So since getting the property under contract, we set out to try to discuss the property, the desires of many of the organizations, neighbors, and various municipalities that potentially could have input on this development. And some of those organizations included the LaFox Civic Organization, the County of Kane, which we had, Mill Creek was developed in the County of Kane and was not associated with any other municipality. We have had discussions with village staff, the village police department. We've had some early discussions with the fire department, the Harley Road property owners on the west side of Harley Road, the Dillonfield subdivision representatives for the Dillonfield subdivision, and then various open space interests, including the Conservation Fund, the Forest Preserve, the Park District, and others. After discussing and meeting with these various groups, we came up with a list of criteria or requirements that we set up for ourselves to propose the development plan in hopes that we could try to meet everybody's needs or desires that abut or are associated with this property or may be impacted by the property. Some of those requirements that we've established include a 100-foot green setback along Harley Road. A little bit difficult to see here, but in essence, a minimum of 100-foot setback of development along Harley. We have also incorporated a 100-foot setback, green setback around the historic district of LaFox. During the planning process, that had been dubbed the Emerald Necklace, in essence, the emerald green necklace that would be around the historic district. And then we have also established a 200-foot setback of green space, generally along the southerly edge of the Dillonfield subdivision and north of our property. We then arrived at a total residential units of 900 residential units for the development. We then worked on open space with the open space groups, and generally we have said that the Mill Creek Greenway, which extends more or less northwest to southeast towards Brundage Road, as shown here in this brightest green, everything north of that area would be open space. And then we also established what is known as the Brundage Creek, generally this green area that is along the far west edge off of Brundage, called the Brundage Creek Greenway. We identified those floodplains and everything from those floodplains generally to the east and to the north, as that would be deemed as open space. That is approximately 440 acres of open space. In addition to that 440 acres, you'll see throughout our bubble plan, there are a variety of detention basins and green open space intermixed within the various residential neighborhoods. Our open space, we believe that by the time we get done with a full detailed plan, the overall open space for the entire development will be in the range of 55 to 65% open space, which would be the greatest amount of open space in our 60 years of planning, that we have never had that much open space in one development. As far as the 900 residential units, the 900 residential units are all intermixed and located within the various bubbles. The colors of the bubbles, in essence, identify what we refer to as neighborhoods. Each bubble would represent somewhere in the range of 50 to 100 lots or residential units. Those residential units, as far as densities, the highest dense product of residential units would be located near the train station. Down here is what is identified as parcel C. That highest dense product will be a townhome product. To make sure it's clear that we have no, what we refer to as a stacked flat product, which is a 3-story or 4-story, typically an apartment building product. So there is none of that apartment product on this plan. The most dense product, as I said, is a townhome product located near the train station. Then our next level of product is, in essence, a 50-foot product, and the products grow in size in 10-foot increments of width of lot from 50 to 100-foot wide lot. All the lots would be in the 125-foot deep range. So in essence, we have 50-foot wide, 60-foot wide, 70-foot wide, 80, 90, and 100-foot wide lots. Again, those lots, total number of residential units is 900. Each of the different colors of the bubbles represent different size lot product, and the quantity is in the range of 50 to 100 in each of those bubbles. If you counted up the bubbles, you would say, Dave, there's probably 12 bubbles on the plan, and there's 900 units, so you can see the variety of number of units that are in each bubble. Our development process includes a wide variety of housing product. We believe in that, is that generally the width of the housing product drives the size of the home. With a wide variety of lot product, you'll get a wide variety of housing sizes, and you'll also then end up with a wide variety of housing prices. And we're not trying to be a particular type of home, and we're not trying to have one specific product for this entire area. We try to intermix all of those residential products. We believe that that generates a mixing of the socioeconomic classes of individuals, and so as it can be said that the school teacher and their children can live in the same community and same neighborhood as perhaps the rocket scientist. Somebody that wants to live in a small home with no children, or maybe somebody that lives in a larger home with many children. So the intermixing of those socioeconomic classes of individuals has always been one of our driving desires to in our communities. The neighborhoods, besides being connected with vehicular connections, they will also all be connected with recreational paths. Those would be walking, jogging, bicycle paths. The paths would be in a variety of types. Some may be of a limestone screening path, some may be of an asphalt paved path. The idea is to have those green spaces within each of the neighborhoods also interconnected with these recreational paths, and the paths are generally off the road in those open spaces so that people can be off of the pavement. In addition to that, we are suggesting that we provide sidewalks on one side of the road to further encourage people to use the recreational paths throughout the neighborhoods. We have work yet that needs to be done, or more work, as we continue to work with the various groups and staff. There's more items that, as with any project of this size, that keep coming to the surface that need to be worked on and flushed out. To give you a general idea of what some of those items are, we have had some discussion on vehicular connections. We've restricted our vehicular connections from no vehicles will be connected to Harley Road. No vehicles will connect to, on Harley Road, there is one vehicular connection. You can see just south of the railroad tracks on parcel B that needs to connect to Harley Road, because that is the only way to connect that piece of property to a public right-of-way. Other than that, there are no vehicular connections to Harley Road. There's no connections, vehicular connections to Brundage, and no vehicular connections to Kesslinger Road. With that, the majority of our connections are to Bunker Road and existing LaFox. Bunker Road extension is a Kane County highway, and so we've been meeting with the Kane County Highway Department to work through their various issues of access points onto, that are permitted onto their highway system. Along with that, we know that we have the Metra parking lot. There is an existing Metra parking lot south of the railroad. If you are familiar with that parking lot today, that parking lot is technically only 50% built south of the railroad tracks. There's another 50% that will be built to the west of that. Believe it or not, their vehicle connection that is out onto the Bunker Road today is a temporary connection. There's plans that KDOT would like to incorporate that connection in with any proposed development plan. Secondly, there's a future parking lot north of the train tracks. Here you see the labeling of parcel E within that farmland area. That is a secondary parking lot for Metra, and there is an existing tunnel that is underneath the railroad tracks that will eventually be opened for the connection of those two parking lots and pedestrians to get from those parking lots to the train tracks. However, those two access points to that to the parking lots need to be coordinated with the development plan and anything else that may be associated with the development. We have so we have work yet to do, more work yet to do with KDOT on those access points. We have been in discussions with the fire department. Fire department has had expressed interest or desire to have some land located within this development for a future fire station. There was one or two initial locations identified along LaFox Road on our within our development plan, and working with the fire department, they had suggested that they would like access off of Bunker Road and this little red area that, I don't know if you can see my pointer, moving that red area immediately south of the South Metra parking lot is the one of the preferred locations for the fire department that they would like to potentially be located. Those discussions with the fire department expanded to discussions with perhaps an outpost, if I'm using the correct term, for the police department to share, as well as Metra Police is also looking for an outpost, that location for Metra Police that would have some office location outside of the city, and they thought that this may be a good location. Those are only discussions, they're not requirements, they're not necessarily demands at this point. Fire department is here tonight. They're probably not aware. The staff and I met yesterday with the KDOT. There's some issues with KDOT not liking the fire department's exit and entrance off of Bunker Road at that location. So there needs to be some further discussions and analysis with KDOT. I'm just bringing that up, suggesting that these other types of details that will need to get further flushed out with not only KDOT but other organizations. We also need to have further discussions with sewer and water to serve the subject property. We will be meeting with, and we've been in contact with, and we'll be meeting with the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District. There are a couple different opportunities to serve this property with sewer and water. Our preference is to initially work with the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District. The Shodine organization was involved with the creation of the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District. Back in the early 2000s, work was actually done on Mill Creek proper, and some work was done to expand the Mill Creek water reclamation and treatment system to serve this property. It was proposed, the Mill Creek FPA was actually expanded onto this property to totally serve it in early 2000. But then when the real estate crash of the 2008, that somewhat collapsed, and the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District did not move forward, other than some improvements that were done on Mill Creek proper.
and the developer at that time then tried to withdraw the property from the Mill Creek FPA and reignite or rejuvenate what was once the Grand Prairie FPA. Maybe too much technical information, but the FPA facility planning area it was the kind of the governing body of sanitary districts, who gives the boundaries of sanitary districts. There is work yet that would need to be done to confirm that the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District can serve this and/or some other sanitary district could serve it. Again, just trying to give you a real brief highlight of some of the other details that would need to be worked out yet. Of course, we've been in discussions and various edits of an annexation agreement with the village, and hopefully, if you're interested and so inclined, at some point, staff will be presenting that draft of that annexation to the village board to see if there is interest in pursuing that annexation agreement. So again, as I was saying, we really need to, we as the applicant and the developer believe that we're at a point where we would like to get some feedback from you as a village board to see whether there is interest in annexing this property, and if there is, to continue to have your staff work with us and others to work on a full development plan. We would be annexing the property with an annexation agreement, and then eventually coming back before you with a development plan that would outline more of these details. But generally, globally, I think people like to know how many residential units are there, what is the density, what is the open space, and thus giving you a bubble plan kind of identifies what those land uses would be and how we would be developing the 962 acres. Been through these presentations quite a bit, been with the organization over 30 years. I know a little bit about the development business. I'm available for questions, and don't be concerned that I'm fully aware that whatever discussions there are tonight, things are potentially going to change. I'm not going to leave here with any firm commitment and thinking that something is done, but there are a lot of details that need to be worked out, but certainly, I'll use an acronym, I need to know if we want to date for a while and see if how the dating goes. So with that, I'm available for any questions, or let others present and speak. And
Okay, we'll do questions from the board, from the trustees, and Mike already had his hand up, so question or comment.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'd say first off, this is probably the best development plan I've seen for this area ever. We, I think, as a community, have been aware of the more dense propositions, which would require annexing into, the last one was St. Charles, the previous one would be Geneva. I like the concept here that you're just cording off neighborhoods at this point and showing us how the lay of the land is going to be. I cannot deny, since I ran on it with a lot of other folks, that the developer walking in saying, I'm going to do half open space, and being non-cynical, some of it's not buildable, we understand that. But you certainly could build on that stuff off at 38. There's nothing wrong with the ability of the land to support housing. So this is fantastic as far as how it's proposed at this point. The devil's always in the details. The issue, Dave, you mentioned earlier about the capacity of the plant, which for a safer system is generally spray fields. You get that confirmed for sure as this goes along. I assume there'd be a new well that you would have to drill just for this.
So if you'd, a little more of the details, when this was proposed as settlement of LaFox, as I said, between the Shodine organization, the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District, and the developer of this property back then actually had a signed agreement where we, Shodine, were providing certain improvements, and that developer was going to provide certain improvements, as was the district. It was a tri-party agreement. At that time, it was generally, the agreement was 2 additional wells,
Okay.
one additional water tower,
Okay.
and then expansion of the wastewater treatment storage ponds,
Okay.
and expansion of irrigation spray fields.
Okay.
Back in early 2000, we had built, Shodine had spent approximately $1 million in building our requirements, expanding some of that equipment and facilities. So that capacity of those portions is there. However, you're correct that at some point we would need additional well or wells. We plan to request with the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District, when we meet with them, to embark on an engineering study. That engineering study would give exact details as to what is needed to complete the expansion of both the water system and the wastewater treatment system. We know that back when it was Settlements of LaFox, 2 wells, 1 water tower were needed for 1,600 units. We're now at 900 units. Somewhere we need to, some of those pieces of equipment are going to reduce or be smaller or maybe not necessary at all. So that engineering study that we plan to embark on with the district will further outline what exactly is needed for both the water supply system and the wastewater treatment system.
Okay, and for my fellow board members, obviously, I'm the engineer geek, so the spray fields are down by Markland Height, it looks like, so, they are all the way up against Main Street. So if we look at, impacts, they're already there, so they're not necessarily gonna affect people that don't know what they bought next to, so to speak. So I think the EPA already has a capacity on Mill Creek now, so there's some available capacity, so that would give you an idea of how many you can start with. that kind of
Exactly.
thing.
So that the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District, as it stands today, is permitted for a certain level of a million gallons per day. The IEPA gets monthly reporting as to what flow is going through that plant today and over the past many years. That, in essence, calculates to what we'll call available capacity. From that point, there are incremental different pieces that are larger, that could handle more capacity. As an example, maybe us engineer geeks get it. There's a mechanical filter. The mechanical filter is twice the size of the capacity of the plant, so we know that we don't need another mechanical filter. We have that large mechanical filter. There are other elements like that within the treatment train that are of capacity. So besides the available capacity today, there's other elements or weakest links, as I call them, in the treatment system that have available capacity higher than the overall capacity, if that makes sense.
And I'm sorry to be maybe a little bit more granular at what is a conceptual level, but I mean that for the concept to be workable, I think this is kind of a key part of it to talk about is the road network is the road network. We can see that the railroad, all those things we know are there. And we've obviously had a storied history with Wasco, which is functioning well now, but we had some issues in the beginning. So to not necessarily allay anyone's fears, because there's no way to 100% do that, but at least to know that we're actually addressing that as we understand this is a concern and this is something we go forward. Transportation-wise, do you want to talk about the roundabouts? Okay.
Mike, before you jump out of that, could you touch base, Dave, on the fact that conceptually now, the spray fields are gonna remain, as Mike alluded, on the golf courses and the
Oh, yeah, that's right, the
existing
golf course,
Mill
too.
Creek area of spray fields? You're not intending to create a new spray field on any of the open space?
Right.
Or sell it to a row crop farmer that remains on this area at this point?
Everything is fluid, and as the project continues to be out in the public, more and more questions get raised. Let me start with that, our desire was to, and at first desire is to connect with the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District. We believe or know that 20 years ago, there was a contract to the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District to serve this property. It makes perfect sense to for them to serve this property. But not only has, there's been another sanitary district that has made the comment that they may have an interest in serving
okay.
this property, so I don't want you to think that it's definitely going to be
Okay.
Mill Creek. It could be another potential sanitary district.
Okay.
There's this pending issue with a facility planning area that the Grand Prairie Sanitary District was created to serve this property, so we could have a new sanitary district. So that's a little bit fluid, but our initial intent is that the way it was planned 20 years ago is the wastewater would flow from the subject development down to the Mill Creek treatment facility that's there now. Treated wastewater would come back to a storage pond. Now that is treated water ready to be used as irrigation. And that treated water, after being stored, would then, during the irrigation season, would go back to Mill Creek, as the village administrator has mentioned.
Okay.
However, there has been some questions raised from adjoining property owner if this treated wastewater be used on their farm. And generally, that treated wastewater can be used on crops. The crops cannot be consumed by a human,
Right, but that could be for feed.
but the crops can be used as feed to cattle, and then humans can eat the cattle.
Right. Okay.
So, again, being somewhat of a fluid discussion, there are interests and calls coming in, different people having different ideas that would like to see if they can get in on what may be an opportunity. So I don't want to give you for sure 100% answers on anything tonight, because it continues to be a fluid discussion with
But
others.
one thing you could assure everybody, there's no planned lagoon storage ponds on
The open space.
on this area at all.
That is correct. Now, no untreated or treatment cells would be located currently on any of this open space.
Okay.
That's correct.
And just because I've been here a short period of time, but the aquifers, speak to the two different aquifers that you'd be.
So as I indicated, when this was proposed as settlements of LaFox with 1,600 units, there were two wells proposed in one water tower. Those wells were proposed to go into either the St. Peter's or St.
Simon.
Charles.
St. Peter's, St. Charles, okay.
Aquifers, one being a deep well, one being a shallow well. Our engineering study, once we delve into that engineering study, will further determine whether one or two wells are needed and what aquifer is best for those wells, and then also the location that is best for that well or wells.
Okay. And then the last comment I would allude to is the conceptual generic, the county's always wanted to push bunker through. That's never been a mystery to anybody, because there's a viaduct there, you can see it. And I see got the potential for a roundabout at Kesslinger. I like that. I'm thinking we might have some internal roundabouts we could look at in the future as well, to fit off of that. And I was gonna ask about the red dot, but I should have known our fellow white shirts back there like things in red, so, we could talk to the county. That seems like a great spot for a public safety component in this. So, that's all, thanks.
Maybe I'll just add, since you brought up roundabouts, yes, the plan does illustrate the proposed roundabout at Kesslinger and Bunker Road. KDOT, in our initial discussion, has asked that we consider a roundabout as our main entry point, either most likely at this location, if you can see my hand or the pointer at Bunker Road. There's been some dialogue back and forth as to whether that should be a full intersection with turn lanes or KDOT's preference is currently that it be a roundabout. However, we know the cost of roundabouts is significantly higher than a traditional intersection, and with the residential units coming down so low or lower than the initially proposed number of units, trying to justify that cost as well as justify it with the traffic movements is a discussion ongoing.
But KDOT has made it crystal clear to me in discussions, they call Bunker Road a bypass. They are planning from LaFox Road to the terminating point south at the end, that they will use traffic circles, roundabouts, because they want a bypass that generally is flowing at 50 miles per hour throughout the distance that it goes north to south. So they're making it like when you are studying and the instructor taps his foot, says they want a roundabout, the correct answer is gonna be one roundabout and may not approve any other curb cuts other than the ones that are affecting to the train parking lots north and south of the train track. And KDOT's control this road, so KDOT is gonna make the rule, not, unfortunately, not us at this table. So it's called a bypass for a reason. They want higher speeds, traffic circles, move cars at a greater capacity with less interruption than traditional intersections with stoplights. They've made their preference pretty clear. So
They've made it very clear, and again, I don't know if I addressed we had proposed with the Metra, the parking lot to the south, Metra has their exiting street, I'll call it, or parking lot aisle. We had suggested and proposed an exit out of the fire station for the fire department, 300 foot of separation generally, 300 feet, for those of you that don't know traffic lingo, 300 feet is generally a city block. Generally a city block length, you would think would be significant distance. And then we also had proposed immediately south of that an exit out of what we call neighborhood C or parcel C, and KDOT has basically told us absolutely no way. There's going to be at max one intersection, and that one intersection will be shared by the residential neighborhood, a fire station if it exists, and the Metra parking lot. So again, I'm not trying to bash or bring up any woes or difficulties that we may have with KDOT, but it is their highway. They have their set standards, 600 feet for right-in, right-out distances, and quarter-mile full access points. They add in here that Bunker Road is a curve. They add in here that there's state and federal funds being used. It's a county highway. They have their rights, et cetera. So the village administrator is correct that some foot stamping going on, and I feel like I'm under the foot, so.
That's
All right, any
appropriately stated. There's gonna be some dictates that neither the village staff or the trustees are gonna be able to overcome KDOT's direction. So we just need to be, I think, is crystal clear to everybody about that fact. And I'll have to have a meeting with the fire department and the chief, I see, in the district to explain where that's potentially, how we're gonna have to deal with that, and options they'll need to discuss with us. So,
Okay, any other comments or questions from the trustees? Janet, go ahead.
I have not been engaged in this process of reviewing all this nearly as long as trustee Millette. But from what I know of it, I agree that it's the best plan that's been presented, and I congratulate you on doing a good job in a very demanding, situation. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the comment.
Yeah, now. So.
Typically I get all the other portions. I'll take the good ones
Yes,
when I can get them.
Yeah, take the good where it is, right?
Should've waited.
So obviously, would have been the preference of the community generally to not have any of it. And so, so we're trying to, as a community that has made it clear that we're really not interested in high-density subdivisions, trying to get our mind around how to really support this and be in integrity with who we are as a community. And I think what I feel I've heard from other people so far is that, in a vacuum, if you'd ask any of us, we would have said, heck no. But it's not a vacuum, and we have to consider what the alternatives, have been in the past. And so I agree with Trustee Millette when it comes to the overall effort. But I do have a couple questions. So I had heard, and I might have misunderstood, that there was possibly a second roundabout north of the train station that was being suggested by KDOT, is that correct?
And that's the one that I was referencing, that the foot stamping, and Dave said felt like he was under
Okay,
that
that's-
foot.
all right.
That's the second one.
So the one down at Kesslinger, I mean, they're already working on that, right?
That is contracted, and they are building it this summer. The downside of this, the development, if we have to add said roundabout 200 meters from the train track north on the bend to get our access to the different pods of development, that is gonna be retrofitted onto a completed KDOT road that will be largely constructed this summer. They plan on kind of having a ribbon cutting, if all goes well, with Martam is the builder. They're building it as we speak, and they plan to be largely completed by fall. And then that's the downside. If we approve this development agreement, they will require the developer village to enter into an IGA to construct the roundabout.
And that's the pain for Dave, not
Yes.
not down at Kesslinger.
Not down at Kesslinger, the
And-
one that's,
And so this is gonna be right north of the second parking lot.
That's
right?
correct.
Where we see there's a little jut out from the bubble on the east.
Correct.
So right around there is where that other roundabout would be. And that's the one that you're potentially stuck with the bill for,
Correct.
all right?
I'm glad he's already accepted he's
No,
got the bill. That's wonderful progress. We got this recorded, don't we, Clerk?
I noted that there is no commercial development anywhere in this plan. And this feels like a lot of units, right? Yeah, so we have one, not the other. So it's a lot of, 900 units without a convenience store, a liquor store, a gas station, a place to get your hair cut, I mean, anything. And it's not the end of the world. The rest of Campton Hills is just up the road, but still, the initial impetus from the state in making this a priority place included the notion that it would be a walkable neighborhood, and a walkable neighborhood needs places to walk to, right? Not just your neighbors. So I'm curious as to why there isn't any commercial development, no matter how small, planned in that area.
To start off with, the Chodine organization is not afraid of commercial development. Not to give you an advertisement on Chodine, but we.
Oh, no, we know you do.
We currently have owned, developed, and built, and currently manage about 1 million square feet of commercial retail office space. Within the Mill Creek development, we did, and we tried, and have some commercial, including a convenience store, what's known as the Mill Creek Market. The density of that, around that village center, we call it the Mill Creek Village Center, is significantly higher than anything that's dense here. It is difficult to have commercial even at that location. And within Mill Creek, we actually had zoning for additional I'm going to say 30 to 40,000 more square feet of commercial space. And unfortunately, even as we built the stacked flats and apartments, which we know from owning and managing the apartments, that majority of the people don't eat at home in those apartments. You can look in their ovens and their microwaves. Microwaves are very dirty when they move out. The ovens are not. The stoves are not. But they don't shop. They don't shop within that village center. So we, and I think other planners that we have talked to, there's really no demand for commercial within this development. About the best opportunity for commercial development, you would have to be out probably on Route 38 to where you could get a higher traffic count to where that commercial is driving that that demand, or the traffic count's driving the demand for the commercial space. But with us being focused of having open space north of the Mill Creek Greenway, it doesn't really give us any commercial opportunity. Maybe if you're an advocate for commercial, I can tell you that, and I won't disclose where, but the Shodine organization, we are under contract to acquire some other land within within Campton Township that soon I hope to be bringing before you, that may generate some approximately 10 acres of commercial space closer or at Route 38. But I don't really want to discuss that property tonight, but I want you to know that if we saw a demand or felt there was a demand for commercial within this development space, we certainly would propose it. But we just don't see the demand. I know there's a train station, and that there's a lot of people that come to the train station. Believe it or not, Shodine owns the Geneva train station on 3rd Street. Metra is one of our tenants, that they are a tenant in the end of the building, the ticket booth. That building is probably our lowest rent generating building in all of the buildings we own in downtown Geneva. You would think that perhaps the train is a generator or driver. Unfortunately, what we see and know is people drive their car, walk, run, take the bus to get on the train and
get home
leave.
as fast as possible.
And then they do the same to get home as fast as possible. They don't want to stop at the train station and have lunch, dinner, et cetera. So, or do their shopping or pick up their dry cleaning, et cetera. So I'll just leave it with, if
Thank
we
you for
knew there
explaining
was
that.
demand, we certainly would not have a problem proposing it within the development, but we just don't see the demand. And the last thing we want, and I think the last thing you want, is vacant commercial space.
Right.
And
Makes sense.
KDOT additionally has told us the 2030 plan, and had pre-COVID, the train station had a whole lot more use than it does today. And they're not happy with that concept because they spent millions
Right.
to buy the land before Ryan owned it, to build the 2 parking lots on the north and south side of the
Right,
Union
I
Pacific.
question the second parking lot, but that's outside of our scope.
They bought the land and platted it before Ryan owned the property, and I think he's owned it for 25
4 to 5
years.
times more
Oh, at least.
than there is.
Oh, yeah.
So I just have one final
All right,
question.
and quickly, because then we have to move
on
on. We have a
the-
long agenda, Janet. Yeah.
I had heard
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if this is true, but I just want to ask you directly, that if there were challenges with getting the various parties that engaged in the open space acquisitions to get their ducks in a row, that Shodine was looking for an option on, to build on some of that open space. Is that correct?
So currently in draft form is an annexation agreement. We are committed to working with the various open spaces as shown on the plan as open space. However, we are also under contract to acquire that land. We are committed to working with those open spaces, that open space and the different organizations that want open space, to allow them to buy that open space land at the same price that we're buying the land for. However, at some point, if none of these organizations want to buy the open space or acquire or hold title to the open space. We just don't want to have vacant farmland as part of the development. So we are trying to reserve our right that after date certain, and I believe it's approximately 3 years that we're talking about, 3 years from the PUD, that in the event that we don't have a contract or somebody acquiring those open spaces, that we could take some of the 900 units and relocate them onto that land. Not adding units, but just relocating onto that other land. Again, the plan I'm showing you tonight, and our goal is that that is open space north of the creek and east of the creek. That's our goal, and we have 3 or 4 good other organizations that have all expressed interest that they have a desire to want to be part of this plan and hold title to that open space. That's our number one priority and our number one direction. But in the event that there is nobody, we just can't have land sitting out there that's foul or waste that can't be used for something. So that's the reason why that language is currently within the draft annexation. That, again, it's still being negotiated, still being worked on, and eventually come before you, but I'd rather be upfront and honest with you, knowing that, yes, it's in there, but why is it in there?
All right. Nick, question or comments?
I'll keep it as brief as I
Thank
can.
you.
So definitely excited about what you have proposed here, and the reasoning for it is grading it against what we have seen. You know, so the fact that there is over 50% open space and 900 units, that part's exciting. What's really important, and to give you some feedback on what I personally would be critical or looking for going forward, you know, I'm not sure where you were born, Dave, but there's a lot of multi-generational families that live here. You know, La Fox, historically, I grew up, my grandparents grew up, we used to shop right by the train tracks at Potter's Place and buy our jeans before we'd go to school. That's where we went shopping. A lot of people out here have those same memories. And what I'm looking at, you know, there's a 200-foot green buffer at Dillon Field, there's 100 feet over at Old La Fox, and those are the kind of details that I really want to see, you know, focused on. You know, those are the kind of things, how can we really protect, how can we make sure that Old La Fox and Dillon Field, that they maintain the same character that they have now. Additionally, while I've never been there, right behind this neighborhood in that waterway, the creek, I would just want to make sure that you were being exceptionally thoughtful in conscientious development, not to disturb some of those sensitive ecological areas over there. All of the feedback Mike Millette gave you, super on point. I couldn't have given you that same feedback, but those would be the kind of things that I hope you can really bring to the table to really make this thing just absolutely perfect.
Well, thank you for the comments. If I could add a little bit more light to some of those. To start with, I was born in Oak Park. So Oak Park, very, I'll say, rigid grid style, similar to the way Chicago developed. I grew up, didn't ride my electric scooter at the time, but I'd be riding my bike around the Oak Park Mall and, you know, hung out at the phone booth and did the different thing, how you talk to people on a paid telephone. Maybe I'm giving you too much of my age, but regarding the historic neighborhood, we literally had 2 different plans. I'm going to call it a plan A plan and a B plan. I'm of the opinion that the Frank Lloyd Wright territory in Oak Park and the housing units, I walk from my house and I see the Frank Lloyd Wright in the historic district, and it's all integrated as one. So admittedly, one of the plans was an integrated no emerald necklace around the historic district. That's the way my brain thinks, is that let people enjoy the historic district and they live around the perimeter of it. The other plan was, I call it the Emerald Necklace Plan, which was the, in my words, dubbed the Emerald Necklace, protect the historic district with green space, this green ribbon or the emerald necklace around the historic district. The people in that neighborhood or the historic district were given the option and they voted for the Emerald Necklace Plan. So it is our commitment that, yes, we're showing it in our plan, I'm telling you about it in a public meeting. Our commitment is that you will see that emerald necklace or that green space around that historic district. So I hear you, you'll see it on this plan and all the future plans. So hopefully that gives you some support or solace as to that you won't see it disappear.
Okay, any other trustees, questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Dave. It was a good presentation. Next, we have Drew and Dr. Zander, or Drew or Dr. Zander. I'm not sure which one of you are going to speak tonight. You spoke, okay, good.
Okay, there we go. Thanks. I'll try and be as quick and brief as I can. I'll start out by saying that Dr. Zander and I are on the board of the LaFox Civic Organization. We've been together for 25 years. I'll go through some of the various developments, some of which have been mentioned already, that we've dealt with over the time. And so we're not here to be a shill for Chaudine, but this thing's coming to you a little bit in reverse because, you know, over the last 8 months, we've been talking to a lot of people and trying to get as much of the groundwork done as we can. So seeing a developer and the community coming in as a team on the first blush visit is like seeing Sasquatch. So you should take a picture. Before I get into my brief prepared comments, I just want to go over some numbers. I've talked to most of you individually, but there's a metric that's used in development called the dwelling units per acre, and that's the net units per net acreage of the entire development. Grand Prairie, which was the first development proposed 25 years ago, had a DUA, or dwelling units per acre, metric of 1.66. The settlements of LaFox, which was the compromise plan that we actually helped work on, was 1.06. The Charles Farm, which was the Pulte abomination from last year, was 2.08. And the current proposal that's being discussed here is 0.93. So these are numbers we never thought we'd be able to achieve, and it's going very well. I'm also going to be mentioning some background with the Forest Preserve. If you look at the map, the bright green Mill Creek and its floodway there, all that light green to the north was about 400 acres that when Barb Winicki and I ran the county board and the Forest Preserve board, we got that actually approved for purchase. And the money was set aside on a shelf. And when Pulte came along, they stopped calling us, and that sort of went away. But it's technically still approved for purchase. And then as far as overall open space, you know, we're getting a little bit more to the south. Dave mentioned Brundage Creek, which is just west of the south part of Brundage Road there. That additional 40 or 50 acres there, Conservation Fund is interested in saving. So that's now been added to the original Forest Preserve goal of 400. So it's 450 acres that Chaudine is being allowed to be put up, a combination of donation and sale for open space. But it's important to note that 962 acres, 450 being set aside right off the bat. But it's important to note that of the 512 acres that are being developed, there's still 39% open space within that developed area. So we're looking at about 650 acres of open space out of the 912 that will still be open space. So again, numbers we never thought that were going to be doable. I do want to mention that the schools, back when we had the big fight with Pulte at St. Charles, the St. Charles School District came out strongly against development there. But at the same time, the Geneva School District did not come out against it, and they actually said we could use some kids. So one of the neat things about this is 100% of the new homes and new residents are in the Geneva School District, none going to Canelan or St. Charles. So just a little bit of background there. But in the last 25 years, our association has successfully defended against 13 high-density developments proposed to be annexed to St. Charles. 3, not 13. After last year's Pulte proposal, over 2,000 homes was defeated. Our group set a goal of 1, finding a local developer to do a project of about half the size. 2, revisit the Forest Preserve's goal of acquiring the 400 acres that I just described. And 3, annexing the Campton Hills. Tonight's presentation is the culmination of all those efforts. Campton Hills and LaFox have always shared a common philosophy of preserving the rural atmosphere, setting aside open space, and promoting smart growth. LaFox becoming part of Campton Hills has been proposed by past Campton Hills officials, as well as regional elected officials and planners, and now the time finally seems right to do that. Annexation of this area to Campton Hills would give the village total control and input on every detail of the project. If it doesn't come through Campton Hills, the identical project will be proposed to Kane County, and you'll have somewhat limited comment status. Traditionally, a developer would propose a maxed out plan and negotiate down from there. In this case, we have challenged the developer to meet a very conservative density goal and max out the open space in his plan from the start. We've conducted neighborhood input meetings with 5 areas of LaFox and have presented the comments from those meetings to the developer, and he has acted on them. The process is ongoing, with Campton Hills staff now taking the lead, but also including us in the process. So I want to thank Village President Warnicki and the staff for allowing us to continue to be included through this process. And we're very excited, and after 25 years, we can kind of see the finish line and a happy ending for this whole thing. And we'd like to stop talking about it. That's finally. So thanks for your time, and thanks for your consideration.
Hold on, Drew. Any comments or questions for Drew before he steps down? Okay. And
Thank
then
you. And
Dr.
Dr.
Zander?
Zander from our board will also make some short comments.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Fox Civic Association and as a neighboring homeowner to this proposed development and incorporation. 6 months ago, I didn't envision myself standing in front of you, having this opportunity to discuss incorporation and a development which is reasonable. The LaFox citizens share the same values which was the driving force behind the incorporation of Campton Hills about 20 years ago, and that is smart and considerate growth and local representation. As Drew commented, the LaFox Civic Association has been representing the LaFox area residents for 25 years. We have been threatened with outrageous developments in the past, and you've seen those. The current concept plan takes into consideration the request of residents in 5 distinct neighborhoods of LaFox, while preserving the Mill Creek corridor for the future generations of our children and our children's children. With about 60% open space, the parks and the train stations will be connected by pedestrian trails. The green space with the walking trails not only preserve the uniqueness of each neighborhood, but also connects the community. Speaking about community, and Janet had made a concern about commercial, when we talked to our 5 distinct neighborhoods, no one wanted commercial. That was one of the requests and that we brought to Shodine as well, just so that you knew that. That was the representation of the community. So speaking for myself, my neighbors, and as an elected officer of the LaFox Civic Association, I wholeheartedly support incorporation and this proposed development by the Shodine Group. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your efforts so far.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Zander? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Carmen, you wanted to make some comments?
Sure, I just have a couple of comments, or excuse give you an update about the discussions that staff has had with Mr. Petzold from Shodine, and also with our village engineer and some other different interested parties to the development. So the process, as we kind of gave a general overview at the last meeting, would be if you were in favor of giving Mr. Petzold a thumbs up to move forward with the development application, we would have at a probably the next village board meeting or fairly soon an annexation agreement for your consideration and approval. For the property to be considered for any sort of zoning relief, it has to be in the village. So the annexation agreement that we've begun to draft considers, let's call it a conditional annexation, that the annexation would be approved via an ordinance approved by the village board after the agreement is approved. But should the property, the PUD, which is anticipated, not receive approval from the village board on a recommendation from the PZC, that the property owner would have the property owner, so is the North First, would have the right to disconnect from the village and not be a part of the village, not getting the approval. That's something that was asked for by the property owner and the applicant. It's something that we would expect. The agreement will also have other various terms and conditions on both the developer and the village regarding review of zoning, a PUD application, and then requirements that the developer would have to guarantee would be in the application. So some of the points that we spoke about, the setbacks from some of the other adjacent residential areas, the lack of access onto certain roads, and the unit count in particular, 900 maximum. We've discussed and we've included currently a proposition that an SSA would be created for the maintenance and repair of all roads within the property. And all of those roads would be initially constructed by the developer, but they would be maintained and repaired through an SSA on those specific parcels that are within the development. There would also be a backup SSA for the maintenance of all privately owned and controlled open spaces within the portions of the development built and managed by initially Shodine and then the resulting HOA. So that way, if the resulting HOA was not able to or refused to maintain those areas, that SSA could be activated to. Yeah, right. Yes, so that includes open space, stormwater. Actually, I believe the active SSA that we have proposed does include stormwater improvements.
The active SSA will definitely be the roads and the stormwater.
Right, right. There is been a discussion of a public safety contribution made by the developer based on the number of units that are proposed. And as we generally discussed, there's an escrow for professional fees, including engineering, legal, consulting, and staff paid for by the applicant, the developer. So there, as Mr. Petzold indicated, the terms have been somewhat fluid. We've met with representatives of KDOT, the Elbert Countryside Fire Protection District, obviously our village engineer, and Mr. Petzold, and we've had varying discussions, and there will be further changes until we see a draft agreement before you soon. So.
And just to add, you've all seen some of the draft deal points and the dollar amounts attached. I would expect some feedback from you before we have another meeting to approve an annexation agreement. So if we have a special meeting June 3rd potentially to further approve this, it'd be, Carmen and I would be available to discuss those deal points and making any adjustments that you feel would be appropriate, and we'll communicate that to Mr. Patzell before we would hold a special meeting to consider approving the annexation agreement. We've had discussions about him being ready on June 3rd, but that'd be dependent on getting the feedback and clarity on all the different deal points that are in that big document we sent you. But so feel free to discuss those with Carmen and I, and we'll make those adjustments and get his sign off before we would hold a special meeting for approval of an annexation agreement, and then on that same evening, you would, as a board, approving the annexation agreement, you would actually refer it for a planned unit development to the Planning and Zoning Board. So that could be as soon as June 3rd, depending on the feedback I receive from you offline and that communication with other entities, but primarily the developer. So we think we could make June 3rd, but that depends on the feedback that I get from you privately or tonight. So you don't have to do it all tonight. We can get it done and then communicate it to the developer.
Okay, ready to move on?
Move on.
All right.
Can I ask one question?
Sure, of course.
So related to the SSA for the stormwater, because I know there's an issue at Norton Lakes where there's some controversy over who is responsible for some of the stormwater drainage, whether it's the village or not. And you mentioned the SSA, so would that cover all stormwater, or would that just cover what the village is responsible for? Because obviously, we don't want another situation like Norton Lakes to come up.
And that's why I suggest we have an active SSA that would be for payment in perpetuity for the roads. So it'd be on the homeowners that buy property tax bill as an SSA, but it'll also cover all the stormwater. So we don't have a repeat of the Norton Lake where truly it's Hank's problem as the developer, not Shodine, who was the second builder.
Yeah, that's why I asked if the
But I
SSA
don't
would
want to,
cover us.
I mean, we should learn from past issues and not have them in the future.
Right, there was a topic of discussion with some of our meetings with Mr. Petzl, that specific subdivision and how we'd like to learn from that. And certainly have the preliminary plans and then the as-built plans be very clear as to, you know, where facilities are located and who bears the responsibility, so.
Okay, go ahead, Kim.
One quick one.
Sure.
Should we also be considering adjusting our subdivision ordinance to accommodate the requirement for SSAs?
They've got their application in already, so that
Well, yeah, I understand
we
that for
can't
this.
change it, we can't change it.
I'm not talking about this, but I'm talking about future.
Oh, yes, that's something that the comp plan, when it's completed, and I might as well do that endorsement now instead of at the end of the meeting. We have a 6 o'clock kind of pre-workshop, and then the public hearing to follow on the new comp plan that the planning and zoning will be hopefully finishing after the public hearing on Thursday this week at 6. Come back to the board, and they have some of those discussion points in there. And I can say that this development does meet their comprehensive plan for the planned unit, or the planning area of 1.5 miles on our border. And it talks about a neighborhood concept and given credit for the open space and not just saying the density is on the 400 acres left of the 962, because 462 is either some type of stormwater facility, the creeks and the open space designation, and the trails and little parks. So it definitely is meeting the comprehensive plan to have close to one home dwelling unit per acre when you do 900 over 962. So it's going to be in compliance with the new concept of the comp plan. It won't be in conflict.
All right, we'll open it up to public comments from our visitors. Well, that's what Carmen suggested. And there'll be please don't ask any questions. This is strictly for public comments. Just raise your hand if you want to make a public comment, and then we'll come up to the podium and address us. So anybody out there? Ed? Okay. Yeah, okay.
The first thing that comes to mind is the size of the development and how.
Can I have your name for the record?
It's Ed Klazowski, resident, 35 years in the area, so. Who's going to oversee this whole development with the size of the village today and your support staff? This is huge undertaking. There's got to be a lot of interaction with Shodine during the whole thing here. I can see the county having that ability, but does the village have that capability to handle that?
Okay, thank you, Ed. Any other comments about the plan? Okay, we'll move on to action items. All right, motion to remove from the table ordinance 25-09, acceptance of public road improvements in Norton Lake subdivision. I'll
Point of-
entertain a motion.
Point of order,
Yes?
I would prefer it to stay on the table, if that's
Ah.
okay with everybody. We had conversation, I've had a conversation with Ansel Blink, who is Hank Harrison's lawyer, to up their responsibilities, and there's a letter being prepared, which we do not have, which would supersede the April 17th letter that's part of this item, so can we leave it on the table?
Do you want to take action on that?
No,
Just leave it on the table.
if that's okay with everybody on the board, I mean,
Okay.
so then.
Consensus?
No motion, then it stays, right?
Consensus, yes.
Okay, then that would be, let's not talk about A or B.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll move on. Motion to approve ordinance 25-09, acceptance of public road improvements. We're going to just remove that, too.
No action,
Okay,
yeah.
I got to go to it. All right, C, motion to approve resolution 25-17, authorizing the adoption of the Kane County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So moved.
And moved by Janet Burson. Second, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yep. Second by Frank. Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hefsenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to D, motion to approve ordinance 25-15, approving a final plat of consolidation for the parcels, I won't read the parcel numbers, commonly known as Morton Estate, Campton Hills, Illinois. And I believe this is located on Oak Hills Drive.
So moved.
Moved by Janet Burson. Do I have a
Second.
second? Second by trustee Boatner. Okay, questions or comments? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hefsenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, on to D, 6D, motion to approve ordinance 25-17, adopting an amusement tax for the village of Campton Hills. And do I have a motion to move? No motion on the table? Okay. Where's it go? Okay, move on for lack of a motion. Mark, I think, could you please talk about these user fee taxes that are pledged to the roads?
Yeah,
I think that's
I
important.
think from the last meeting, we did add language with the lawyer that each of these three, if you look at the ordinance, added that it will be guaranteed to only be used to supplement MFT and used for capital, specifically the roads improvements in the village. And if it passes, any of the three passes tonight, we will do another ordinance setting a financial policy in your financial policies that relate to the budget, that these dollars will come into the capital fund MFT for road work and road work only. So you'll have it both in an ordinance if you pass any of the three, and then if they do pass, next meeting, we'll have an ordinance establishing a financial policy to restrict it that way as well. So you'll have belt and suspenders that the money raised will not be spent on anything but roads.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
For purposes of this further discussion, I will make the motion.
For which one?
The
6E,
6E, for purposes of discussion, I'll make that motion.
okay.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
second? Second by Frank. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, concept is the same as I've said before on E, F, G, H, and I, but I'm still never gonna vote for,
We don't have the,
oh, place of eating's off of here, so,
it's
good.
off, it's off.
What we asked for last time is we need, I need some hard numbers on this. And we've been back and forth about maybe this, maybe that, maybe that. Before I can get some clarity, more clarity that the concept I'm thinking in my mind is that we're replacing lost Comcast revenue. I need this to show me that. So maybe we should remand this or maybe we should refer this to the Finance Committee for further vetting of that concept to see which of these would get how much, and then have them, as the Finance Committee should, give us the pros and cons on it, and then we can come back, you know, in the fall or whatever it would take the Finance Committee to look through this, and then, based on what they thought, then I think we'd have a better conversation, because even though I'm in favor of the concept, I still can't say I would vote for it tonight, because I don't know that the prove-up is there.
The Finance Committee won't take till fall to give you that data, or that recommendation. They can probably be back here in late June. If that's what, is that
Janet?
what the board wants? And we can go to IDOR on some of the numbers and get an expectation. But until we pass it, you're not gonna know if the 200,000 estimate for any one of these is gonna be created.
So
Go ahead, Janet.
I agree with trustee Millet to some extent on this, because we entered into an intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Department of Revenue for purposes of getting a pretty precise estimate of what the telecommunications tax would look like, what the utility taxes would look like. I don't think IDOR necessarily has visibility into what the streaming tax would look like, because they're not part of that collection stream normally. So I don't think IDOR can give us any idea what this amusement tax would bring us. But IDOR can tell us, and I thought they were going to tell us, what these other these utility taxes, telecommunication utility taxes, might be likely to raise. And so it's frustrating that we've entered into this intergovernmental agreement and it's months later and we still don't have this data. But I also, we're talking about E, not the rest of them, and I continue to strongly voice my objection to this amusement tax. It is called an amusement tax because multiple municipalities have tried to do an end run around the state of Illinois', obvious stated intention that they do not want us taxing streaming. It says it right in the Illinois compiled statutes. Now, the fact that some people have found a way to get around it and that they so far survived legal challenge, good for them. But we don't have any reason to think that the legislature is going to allow that to continue either. It's so unfortunate that that we can't tax streaming directly, because if we could say to people, look, you used to pay a franchise fee on your Comcast, but now you don't have Comcast, and so now you pay this tax on the streaming. If we could do that in a clean way without having to go through this subterfuge and handstands and cartwheels of an amusement tax, I would feel better about it. So I'm a no on the amusement tax because I don't think it makes any sense the way it's constructed. And also, I have a high degree of confidence that the revenue that we're seeking is available from the telecommunication tax and the utility taxes. And I would like to see that data so that we would know for sure.
Go ahead, Frank.
I don't have an issue with the amusement tax, because obviously I think I see it as a replacement for what we've lost, right? And I think we're gonna continue to lose. So I'd be in favor of it, but I would like to see numbers. I mean, I think that is important. My other concern, and to your point, I think the state of Illinois is gonna roll an amusement tax out. And it's gonna be based on services provided, and that's what they're proposing. And it's gonna generate $2.7 billion more of revenue for the state, which to me is very concerning, because now the state's doing it. And, are we gonna do it? So, you know, the state of Illinois hasn't figured out that they need to spend less, not charge more, especially under this administration. So I don't want to be overly critical here, but it's the honest truth. If you look at the numbers over the last, you know, couple terms. So that would be my concern, because now you're going to get the state of Illinois charging, I think it's a 6.5% tax on services. That's what they're proposing. Whether it goes through or not, I don't know. And then we're talking about tacking on a tax as well. So I was all for this coming in, because I thought it was needed, and we do need to find ways to generate some revenue to, you know, cover, you know, escalating costs. But now you got the state of Illinois, who you said, you know, doesn't allow people to do it, that they're gonna say, oh, by the way, we're just gonna do it. So that would be my concern at this point.
Okay. Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can elaborate on trustee Benetti's comment about what the state's doing. It's the end of the budget cycle and the end of downstate their terms. And as they always do with that budget, they wait till the last minute. That has to be a stack of paper this big that nobody gets to go through. But the latest I heard, when they say services, they're talking everything under the sun, from haircut to streaming to everything, okay? And it's gonna be a big revenue generator for me. I also agree that they should spend less and save more. But I just wanted to elaborate on that, and I think if we have the opportunity to take advantage of it before they do it, we probably should. Although we're only talking a week and a half, but.
Go ahead, Nick.
I always love more data, and I would love to know what this would generate. But we've been asking for that for so long, and I'm just at this point, I'm like confused why we don't have it, and, you know, to table it for that, whether it was a little bit or a lot. At the end of the day, now that they have added Section 4, you know, we kind of have to weigh our priorities. Are we totally against any taxes or fees, or do we want to get our residents, you know, the ability to, as much funding as possible for new roads? You know,
It's all
going
about
through
roads.
the comp plan, one part of that comp plan, something that stuck out was that a goal of Campton Hills is that the value of our homes are gonna increase at a rate that exceeds the market. And more I've been driving around because of this, and there are really a lot of crummy roads. I mean, and if we could get ourselves out of, you know, some of these red lines on the robotics, I support these only because Section 4 has been added to this. Carmen, if you wanted to talk about Section 4 and what that actually does for all of these, but I'm sorry, yes, Section 4. But it says 100% of this is going to go into a separate account, and it's only going to be used for the village's municipal street system. So this money is going directly back to our residents. There's no discretionary spending, unless I'm misinterpreting this. And that's my big issue with taxes. I mean, if I knew I was getting something back from the money I was spending, I would feel much better about them. But I don't trust the government to do a good job with my money. You know, this says that that's going in a separate account and it's going to go towards road work. And because of that, I would support this. And I think we should.
And Trustee Bodnar, that's correct, and that was something that you had brought up at the last meeting. And then after the last meeting, I was directed to add this to all of the ordinances that had previously been proposed, and then the other ordinances regarding utility taxes that are also on the agenda this evening. It's the same exact language in each ordinance, and that's exactly the case. All the money, as is written here, that's collected from any of these taxes would go directly toward the repair and maintenance of the village's municipal street system. And as Administrator Rooney indicated, to further protect or ensure that, the village could pass an ordinance adopting a policy regarding the creation of a fund and where the revenue from these taxes would go. Similar to the way that you adopt your policy, the fund balance policy every year at budget time.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, we need a vote on E,
You have to vote them individually.
right? Mike, you still,
Um,
you're still on the amusement tax, right?
yeah.
Okay.
How if I, since I'm the maker of the motion, if I want this to be vetted by the finance committee, would that be a superseding motion? Or
You can either withdraw your
Withdraw
motion.
and just
or you
give
can make-
direction?
Right, and it would just be board direction to direct these issues to the.
Okay, then I'll withdraw my motion.
What's that?
You have to ask for a new motion.
For E, okay. We'll start over then. 6E, motion to approve ordinance 25-17, adopting an amusement tax for the Village of Campton Hills, Illinois. Once again, the funds are all pledged to go for roads and really nothing else. It's been written up legally that way, correct, Carmen?
Correct, that language
Yeah.
is in all of the ordinances.
Okay. All right, motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Nick? Any seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Frank. All right, are we done discussing? Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Nay.
Trustee Millet?
Nay.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hafsenberger?
Nay.
President Wonicky?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, moving on, motion to approve ordinance 25-18, adopting a simplified municipal telecommunications tax for the Village of Campton Hills, Illinois. And I'll just repeat once again, the money would be pledged to go to roads and nothing else.
So moved.
And it's been legally drawn up that way. Moved by Janet Burson. Do I have a second?
Second?
I'm sorry, second by Nick. Okay, discussion? Question?
I'm the one that first recommended this particular tax, because it was always within the purview of the village, and there was a decision made early on when the village was incorporated to not go after some of these miscellaneous taxes, but it was always within our purview. And as former trustee Williams said, everybody does it. I mean, every municipality does it. We're brain dead stupid to not take it. It is not like the amusement tax. We're on 110% solid legal ground with this. Everybody does it. The state has made it brain dead simple for us to collect it. We just file the form and the money starts rolling in. I think this is going to generate more revenue than the amusement tax, I think significantly more. And I think the subsequent utility taxes that we're talking about will generate even more, which is one of the reasons I didn't want to fiddle with the amusement tax. If we're talking about 6%, which doesn't have to be 6%, that's the maximum we're allowed. But our cell phone bill for two of us is about $130 a month. I think we get some subsidized corporate plan, might be a little cheaper than some people's, but still. So 6% on $130 a month, it's not a lot of money. And if your bill's bigger, easy head math, if your bill's $200 a month, what are you paying? $12. The difference, between, as we go down this list, the amusement taxes, we have no idea where anybody is, nobody knows who's paying for any amusements anywhere. So the idea that you're trying to tax someone for an amusement that they're consuming in their town, when it might not be paid by them, it might be somebody else's account or whatever. We have that all over the place with streaming. We have a little bit less of it with shared plans with cell phones. So most of this telecommunication tax is going to be cell phones. And So we don't know whether the 3,700 households that we have in Campton Hills, we don't know how many of them actually have their cell phones registered there and how many cell phones are registered somewhere else. We don't know. That's why we had requested this information from IDOR. But I think it's gonna be good revenue for us. The only comment I have about this earmarking for the roads is that in the past, we subsidized roads out of the general fund. And so if you're gonna earmark money for the roads in the special fund, does that then imply that the money that you used to take out of the general fund and apply to roads is available to spend to other things? Does that mean you get to hire more people? You get to do more things? I understand it's a good intention to try and set this money aside, but I think it's still going to result in an increase in administrative spend nonetheless, just because we're going to make it possible. But I moved for it, and I'm in favor of this particular one.
Okay,
Yes, certainly. Yep.
go ahead, Carmen.
Just for sake of clarity, everything above Section 3 in this ordinance comes directly from the Department of Revenue. So this is a template ordinance that they provide, that they accept, and we can obviously include Section 3 and everything below that, because that's just a formality's sake, but this comes directly from IDOR. No changes.
Okay, ready? Oh,
I
go
made a
ahead.
comment.
Frank. Sure.
So, to Trustee Burson's point, I think my intention when we discussed it last month about the money going towards the roads was to help offset the shortfall over the next 10 years, because it was significant on what we need to fix roads versus what we have projected, right? So my hope is that what you just said does not happen. Okay? Because the idea is to tap into the shortfall and, apply more funds to roads, not to keep the same balance and have a $10 million shortfall after the 10 years or whatever, the 20 million, I think it was, to not have that shortfall. It's really to eat into what we need to fix the road. So my only comment would be, and I'm glad you made that comment, because honestly, I didn't even think about it when we first discussed it last month, is that we should see an increase in that fund, in the funds needed for roads, not for it to be the same, so.
Okay, any other comments, or are we ready to vote? Anything else? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Nay.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All righty, we'll move on to G, motion to approve ordinance 25-19, imposing a municipal tax on the purchase and use of electricity in the village of Campton Hills, Illinois, Kane County, Illinois. Could I entertain a motion? A motion?
A motion?
Okay,
I'll
Nick?
I'll second.
Okay, Kim seconds. All right. Questions or discussion? No discussion? Go ahead, Janet.
Again, just for people to understand what this might be, what are you looking at? What are you going to see on your bill? It's 61 cents a kilowatt hour for the first 2,000 kilowatt hours. I checked on our bill. We run between 2,500 and 3,000 kilowatt hours. ComEd always tells us we use more electricity than our neighbors, but I think they tell everybody that.
Wow.
Well, good for you. So for us, this comes out to about $17 a month. So just so you know what you're getting into.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Nay.
Trustee Hefzenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to H, motion to approve ordinance 25-20, imposing a municipal utility tax on persons engaged in the business of furnishing gas or electricity in the village of Campton Hills, Kane County, Illinois.
So moved.
Moved by Janet Burson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Nick. All right, discussion? Questions, discussion? Go ahead, Janet.
I do have a question. I'd like an explanation on the difference between the 5% electric tax that is contemplated in H versus the per kilowatt hour electric tax that was in G.
Yeah, give us a second here. Carmen will pull it up.
Right, so the electricity is only allowed to be charged at a tax at a per kilowatt hour basis, whereas the rate or the bill, overall bill on gas can be taxed at a percentage rate.
Then I would suggest you have an amendment that you might need to make because you've got 5% tax on electricity also.
Give me 1 second. And that's at what section, excuse me?
Oh, let me dive down there. Let's see.
Bottom of page 1.
I think that's right.
So right, the question was why are they both 5% of the gross receipts? So usage on electricity can only be taxed on the per kilowatt hour basis, as was stated in the last ordinance, but the distribution, so the supplying, distribution, the selling can be based on the 5% of the gross receipts. So this is a tax on the supplier. Whether or not it's carried on to the user is up to the supplier, but this is taxed on the supplier. And it can be taxed on a maximum of 5%, whether it's gas or electric.
So on the delivery charge.
On the delivery, yeah, right, exactly.
And that's pretty standard for all municipalities, though.
Right. And one thing I didn't mention, the next section down, 393, indicates the date of imposition of tax. In all of these, we have them beginning on January 1 of 2026.
Yes.
It's obviously up to your discretion, but the telecom tax at this point of the year, that's the earliest you could have it start anyway, because it has to be to IDOR prior to April 1st for it to begin in, I believe, October. So now, as long as it's there, I believe by the end of September, it can begin in January 1st. So for ease of clarity, we just put them all January 1st, or I drafted them all that way.
I mean, that's the rules IDOR establishes. And the one on the utility tax, it did take a little research because most municipalities did this in the early 70s. We couldn't find an example of who to follow because nobody's done it in the last 25 years because they did it all that many years ago.
Frank?
I guess my concern here would be that we're going to hit people twice on electricity because the supplier is going to get taxed, he's going to pass that along to the resident, and we just passed electricity tax on to the residents. So I would almost amend this to take the electricity out, just so that doesn't happen. I mean, that would be my suggestion.
Can we do that,
We can.
Carmen? Because it's
Um,
already written up, yeah.
That
Well,
can be done. It may.
Then I would like to move to amend the motion. So when I made the motion, I'd like to move to amend the motion to remove the 5% electric tax.
Take out the electricity. Let's see what Carmen says here.
We'd probably have to strike 392B.
I think that's the only place.
393 does indicate the consumption of electricity. There's going to be some redrafting here to make it clear. I think rather than just start pulling lines out, if that's your preference, we can redraft this for
And I
future meeting.
move to table for
Table,
till the next meeting.
table H? Okay,
So, till we have a completed redraft.
okay, so motion to table H, do I have a
Yes,
second?
please.
Second by Therese. Roll call on that?
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Good point, Frank. Yeah. All right, moving on to I, motion to approve ordinance 25-21, amending the Campton Hills Village Code regarding compliance with the Local Government Taxpayers Bill of Rights Act.
So moved.
I'm sorry, moved
Second.
by Mike, second by Janet. Okay, discussion?
So the only change to this ordinance, because you tabled the municipal utility tax, would be to remove 351 B3, because you will not have that tax in the village code. So this ordinance amends the village code. If you have a self-administered tax, you have to include this language within the village code. It gives individuals and corporations that are paying these taxes that are self-administered by the village a basis or a framework for determination of their liability, interest on their overdue payments, a right to credits or refunds, appeals, and the sort. And this is required by the Department of Revenue and by state statute. So if you're not approving tonight the municipal utility tax, which is the tax on the distribution or furnishing of electricity and gas, we just pull that out tonight, and then when we bring forth the municipal utility tax ordinance at a future meeting, we'll have a separate ordinance that will include what will be B3.
I withdraw my motion. I'm instead substitute motion to approve ordinance 2521 as presented with the striking of proposed section 351B3, 351 beta 3.
That work.
Okay, do we need a second on that?
Second.
Yes.
Second by Janet. Okay, any other discussion or questions? All right, roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you for that correction, too. All right, moving to J, motion to approve resolution number 25-18.
Point-
Author,
Point of order, I apologize, but I think
Sure.
we need a motion to extend the meeting,
where are we
it's
at?
9:18,
Do we?
2 hours.
2 hours.
9:30, the village code
9:30?
indicates 9:30. Yeah,
Okay.
I
My-
kind of
All
figured
right.
we'd get there, so I checked it earlier.
All right.
You could do it now, or you could do it at 9:30.
Okay, motion to approve resolution number 25-18, authorizing application for 2024 local project funding and execution of all necessary documents.
So moved.
Moved by Mike Millet, second by Therese. All right, discussion?
Could we just have Scott Marcourt
Sure,
give the overview of what this does,
absolutely.
to save time?
Very high level look. The state announced this program 11 days ago. There's a new funding coming from the state, $400 million statewide. Okay, it's a really broad stroke application, applicable roadways, infrastructure, bike paths and such, in compliance with the village's grant policy. We wanted to bring this ordinance to you to let you know that this is coming up. One thing that this does is, because it's be applied towards an existing road project, which is our KCOM funded project, it's actually, if you're successful, would be reducing village expenditures for an already planned project. I do want to make everyone aware, don't get your hopes too high. We expect this to be very heavily subscribed, in fact, oversubscribed. Project readiness, you're in pretty good shape on. Economically disadvantaged communities, you're not going to rank so well on. So, but it's an opportunity, it's a fairly quick application, so we wanted to bring it forward to get this resolution on the books.
So you would do the application for this?
Correct.
Correct.
It's basically ready to go. We just need your approval to send our application in. The deadline is,
Sunday, June 1st. Actually, there's a webinar on Thursday to provide additional information because everybody and their brother is having questions about this, about what it applies for. This is just one step out of the way so that we're ready to go for that application.
and we just need your approval before we apply for a grant, even though it's going to be found money if we're successful.
Okay, you ready? Roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Heffelberger?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Scott. You might as well stay up there. We're going to discussion items. A, 2025 pavement rejuvenation program, and B, 2025 roadway resurfacing program.
Certainly.
Well, let me preface this, folks. We did not have a problem with H.R. Green submitting for the 4 KCOM bypass list. Those issues got in Schaumburg at IDOT, not at the village or village staff or the engineer. So knowing that they're not going to get built this fall, like we originally proposed, we're basically doing is taking what would have been on the robotics red report for 2026 and moving it to this year with the rejuvenation of past roads that could use it to extend their life as part of a 2025 road program, so we stay spending that $750,000 to $800,000 annually. So I think as one of the trustees, Burson, when I explained it to her this morning, she said, so the $600,000 obligated for KCOM bypass, you're only asking for roughly $400,000 in the MFT of this year to do this list of roads and rejuvenation. And that is correct. So Scott, if you'd explain the rest of the roads.
Sure. That's what happened, and there are numerous other communities that have, the workload that IDOT has to deal with all these projects is incredible. In some cases, other communities have run into this as well. Projects have been held up. So we wanted to make sure to be able to get some roadway work done this year. First part of it is $100,000 worth of pavement rejuvenation. This is for roadways that have been resurfaced in 22 and 23. We'd like to do them within a couple of years of resurfacing to maintain the good condition. So that's the first item. There's one contractor that does the work. We've been in contact with them. Same contractor that you've used in the past. We're just looking for your direction. If you do want to proceed with this forward, we would work with them to have them submit a contract to bring to the village board for approval at a following village board meeting.
So can we get a sense of the board? Is that appropriate in your minds? If there's no objection, then we come forward at the
Consensus, yeah.
So I see no nays.
Good.
Scott will bring that forward. Next.
Okay, thank you.
All right, 7C, Village Building Code Update.
Wait.
Oh. That was A.
That was
Resurfacing?
A of the resurfacing. There's the roads that we're gonna add.
Okay.
And we need to delegate.
All right.
Designate those.
2025 roadway resurfacing program.
Right, that's the other portion of the road work planned to be done in 2025, as the other project was deferred. So what we did is we took the worst of the worst, if you will, from the 2026 program from the 5-year CIP in conjunction with the Highway District and both Ray Weber's here and John Boveri from Public Works Committee about swapping those roadways to bring those forward to do those resurfacing projects in 2025. What's listed in here totals more. These were the worst of the worst. what's listed in here totals more than the available funding by about $200,000. So I do list the bottom two lower priority streets. We would suggest designing a project just slightly above what the available funding is, if bids come in favorable, to be able to do everything. Kind of like what the village did last year. But this is the list of projects that the Highway District thought was best suited to move forward into 2025.
So what I'm asking consensus is to direct the engineer on those listed roads. And I'd be remiss if I didn't include 20 to 25,000 for Connors to be chip sealed, because it needs to be patched and chip sealed because they had some damage that we're trying to pursue. A farm implement dropped their discs and chewed that, you know, that road wasn't paved. Well, it's getting closer to gravel than it was. So we'd like to patch it, chip seal that, and that would also come forward with the bid. So you're not approving the bid, you're just approving us to do the work, to get a bid out, and then you will have an opportunity to strike or approve the bids that come in. So we're just getting approval to go out for bid to do what was gonna be in '26 to do this year, because the 4 main roads with the KCOM are deferred till next year. So you will approve an actual contract when the bids come in. So we just want to get the permission to do this so that we have a chance to get the work done this summer, not this fall.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out. Connors Road, actually, the Highway District has said they would take the lead on getting bids for the chip sealing for it, and we would take the lead on, we'd bring forward a design and construction engineering contract for those remaining roadways, and then that could be put together, because you're using general funds, could be put together pretty quickly.
Consensus or just?
We just need a consensus, and then you'll approve whatever document comes to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to clarify that in the conversation I had with Administrator Rooney about, you know, freeing up the 600,000 that was restricted, you know, on the KKCOM project, I was not proposing spending the whole 600,000. I was proposing spending 400,000, right? Which leaves us, to your point, a little short on, you know, on some of these projects. So we're, you know, I'm not sure what, you know, the rest of the board wants to do, but I think, you know, we'd be doing pavement rejuvenation and some of the worst, and maybe not all of them.
Okay.
Is it, if I'm understanding correctly? You even mentioned being 200,000 short.
Right. The streets themselves total about a little over $700,000. With thinking there was 600 minus the 100 for rejuvenation is 500,000. I think I'd have to take a couple streets off of here to get to that.
Well, we have
500,000.
MFT also.
Pardon?
We have MFT this year also, right?
Well, we wouldn't be able to spend the MFT because we'd be in the same boat we have with Schaumburg needing to approve the documents. We really can't touch the MFT, which will be good because instead of just
they'll have it next year.
instead of just 450 available next year for the KCOM, we'll actually have about 850 to 900,000 because we won't be spending it this year. So it'll be 2 years of MFT. So that will reduce the restricted fund balance for the KCOM because we'll not just have 450 as originally planned, we'll have close to 900 next year. So I'm asking, after reviewing that, after I had my conversation with you, MFT 400 becomes 900 next year, so you could use the full 6 maybe.
Mike, go ahead.
How fast could you get this on the street?
With general funds?
Yeah, with general funds.
Pretty quickly.
Give me a number.
We'd have a design contract for you at the next board meeting, and we're probably out to bid, is it May, August?
Okay.
Jeez. All right, consensus to move forward? Okay. Very good.
We'll get this to you as quickly.
Great.
We'll be back before you as quickly as we have a special meeting in June.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. All right, now, Village Building Code update from BNF.
Actually, this is just, I want to get solicit more feedback from any of the trustees, because as he said the last time he's here, we'll do amendments. Is there any specific amendments any of the trustees have tonight? Or please contact me, or we can have you talk straight to Seth, so we can get the amendments that we need when we adopt the 2023 International Building Code.
In the interest of time tonight, I'd like to accept that invitation to speak with you separately about it.
Absolutely. And that way because we want to make sure we got all the amendments that you desire, instead of just adopting it as it comes on the international. All right? Sounds good? We can move on.
Okay, moving on, drop it to E, Comprehensive Plan Update Review. And thank you, Tracy, for including a link that we could click on and make it easy for us. So, yeah.
That's at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
Thursday night this week.
Right.
There'll be a kind of a workshop, and then followed at the conclusion of the feedback and the questions asked, we'll open a public hearing on the comp plan that the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on, and that the expectation is it will get approved with any changes the public might request of the Planning and Zoning Board. And it'll come to you for your adoption or amendment in June.
Okay, any discussion?
Please
or-
attend, though.
Yeah.
Please attend this Thursday, because it'll
Yes.
help you on your review when it's before you as a board.
Go ahead, Janet.
First, I'd like to move to extend the meeting because it's now 9:32.
All right.
So, we
Have a second to extend the meeting? Second by Nick?
All right,
Do you need a roll call or just
is voice vote?
voice vote? Yes?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, good.
I wish that we could get out of the wait and hurry up mode of doing things. The comprehensive plan has sat here for years and years and years and years. And now, all of a sudden, in the last couple of months, it's a mad rush to get the comprehensive plan done. It was done in such a mad rush that there was virtually no public participation, because I don't think the public even knew that it was happening. There was it was a difference that was noted by people participating in the process. And I'm not sure why we're in such a mad rush. I understand it might dovetail a little bit with some of these annexation things that we're talking about. But we rushed through this with planning and zoning. We're having a hearing on Thursday that virtually nobody knew was happening. And one 30-minute workshop opportunity for the public. It seems to me like this is something that should be multiple workshop opportunities for the public. And I'm concerned that we're rushing a pretty important document that we're going to be living with for another 10+ years. And as I read it so far, this new comprehensive plan doesn't really particularly contemplate this new development. And so I'm not even sure that we're even accomplishing the overall goal of trying to plan out what our land use is over the next 10 years from what I'm seeing so far. So the whole thing seems rushed and premature to me.
The public hearing, if there's a lot of feedback, they'll
Right.
tweak anything, but you can have one meeting and adopt it, or you can have 10 meetings at the village board level if you think it's rushed or not advertised. They're finished with their process, and they're ready, they've advertised the public hearing. They will send it to you as a board, and if you feel trustee Burson's right that it hasn't had enough advertising to the public, you can, as a board, direct that we have a workshop as a board. But it will be finished in all likelihood this Thursday night from the planning and zoning. And how this board, how many meetings you have is up to you as a group. And you could have any kind of special workshop on the topic if you feel necessary. It'll be your decision as a group.
Okay, any other comments?
I have a question.
Questions? Go
So, on the general concept, who gave direction to the planning and zoning on how to put this together? Because obviously, we're all elected officials to represent the residents. Where did the planning and zoning group, committee, get their guidance or direction on how to put this together? And this is a question more for educational purposes, because I'm obviously new to this. Because most of the boards I've sat on before, we actually have input into what the comprehensive plan is, and we give direction to the comprehensive plan, and then the staff creates the comprehensive plan to get implemented. So this is a much different process than what I'm familiar with, and that's why I'm asking the question. So I'm not being critical in any way, I just want to understand how this comes about.
The village board just put it before the planning and zoning as an issue to address. And there wasn't do A, do B, or do C from the elected body that was prior, the prior board before the election, because that's not the standard way of doing it. You allow the planning and zoning to look at the document, have meetings, discuss it with staff and lawyers, and make changes, and then they bring it to you for your amendment or adoption as a board. As I said, it was past due for a revision, and the direction was amongst the 7 that became 6. I think Therese sat on it. She can speak to whether the staff told them what to do or not. I don't think we did, but it was a pretty free-ranging discussion on each chapter, and they made some significant rewrites, but the concepts weren't totally rewritten, because the idea of farmland protection as a first land use and continued farming, large plot subdivisions instead of tract housing was a theme, and then it just kind of rolled from that in that. So they really tried to keep the theme of what the village has been in its entire existence to be as semi-rural as possible and to tie to the rural roots. So you will see that in some of the pictures they chose in the document. And quite honestly, they did their work. It comes to you, and as I said, you can have one meeting and adopt it, or you can have as many as you desire. And you could have a special workshop to get a charrette going for the public to come in and talk about it, if you desire. It's entirely 4 people on this board decide that. Carmen, is there anything else to add legally? You didn't attend many because we didn't feel we needed the attorney on this, unlike the zoning.
Right. We haven't been attending the PZC meetings since they started this process, but I will just say generally from a comprehensive plan perspective, there are specific requirements that are required in every plan. Your zoning administrator, Jim Brown, has worked on a number of comp plans before, so he's well aware of what's required in the plan, and I imagine he helped guide the discussions throughout the certain chapters and sections with the members of the commission. And it's just a legal requirement that a public hearing's held for any input, and then a recommendation's made to the village board.
Any other questions, comments? Mike?
I think to directly answer your question, Trustee Benetti, is you won't find a direct referral on this because it was referred back in like 2015 or 2016. We talked about it back then needing to be done, but then we decided as a board to redo the zoning ordinance first. And then it was always, it wasn't maybe any direction per se that you would, again, I don't know if you'd find it written that way, anything that I can remember, but it was always the intention that as soon as the zoning ordinance rewrite was done, we would move directly onto the comp plan rewrite before the momentum was forgotten or something else came up. So I think that is if not the exact direction, that is the evolution of it.
And that's the understanding I had when I was hired. Zoning ordinance, once that's completed, move forward with the comp plan because it's outdated and needs rework. I mean, they did a fine job with some grad students at the time that worked for CMAP. It helped, but it had some language in it that was flawed in graduate student work. And I think it's a much better document, but you will all eventually be the judge of that. And you can, as I said, you will amend or adopt as you so choose.
Okay. All right, any additional comments from President, trustees, village attorney? Okay. I'll accept a motion to go into closed session, and it is to discuss
Employment,
appointments.
compensation, that
Yeah,
stuff,
the
okay.
appointment, employment.
C21,
You're way ahead of me. Compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or contractors.
And that's under 5 ILCS
Yeah.
120/2C1.
I could put it
Okay.
down there. So moved.
All right, moved by
Second.
Mike, second by Janet. Roll call.
And there will be no action after closed session.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Where did my paperclip fling to? It flung. It's, I don't know where it flung to. It flung.